What is up, guys? Fonzarelli, Fell-Handed here, boat game, Johnny Utah. You under dig? Today, we are on World of Warships Legends in the Mexico. If you combine new and Mexico, you get Mexico. Now, guys, somebody had a really good idea on the stream the other night, whenever, 2-3 weeks ago, or yesterday, I don't know, one of those days. They said, man, you should come up with some stickers, underwear, draws, whatever, with like some of your random sayings on there. That is awesome. Now, you have to understand, I have no memory of anything, so I don't know what one of my sayings is. I know it's moving on because I had a contest who could think of my sayings one time. That was one of them. But I only say that in videos, I don't really say that in games. So, moving on. Please, going forward, comment some sayings below. I'm going to start some merchandise, some seat covers for like an 82 Buick, things of that nature. We're going to have a whole different line of merchandise. We're going to have custom camo for your battleships, what have you. To the game. We are in the Mexico. Now, for the uninitiated, you do not want to take broadsides in a battleship because it will hurt your no-no spot. I have learned this the hard way. However, you kind of have to, as those better at this game than I say, fire through the turn. You essentially want to angle, not an unfamiliar concept for you folks from the World of Tanks universe, but there's not really a whole lot to it aside from just not being broadside. I mean, you know, obviously depending on where the round comes in, you know, if you've got a good enough angle, the damage is going to be minimal. If they're firing AP, there's a citadel right there. That is what you don't want. You don't want to get citadeled because that takes an enormous amount of your life off, your HP, your hit points, your health pool, if you will. So, the idea here is you always want to maintain a good angle. Now, granted, of course, you know, there's that old issue of not being able to have all your guns on target if you're angled properly. Well, that is kind of why we fire through the turn. And I'm not necessarily at that level where I can kind of instruct folks about torp avoidance, because if you really get down to it, you're fighting, battleships are more or less always going to be, you know, the primary target. And if you've got, you know, 2 or 3 people attacking you, the last thing you're literally thinking of is torps. You're thinking of how to angle, you know, who do I shoot next, target prioritization, things like that. The little fishies in the water is the last thing you're going to be thinking about. So, the idea here behind this is, obviously, you kind of want to know where your citadels are, and I am going to make a citadel guide. It's a little different for every ship, kind of like, you know, the weak spots are different for every tank. For my World of Tanks folk, everything's just a little tiny different, but for the most part, you can kind of ID them. But I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details right now. I am going to kind of go into, you know, what to angle, you know, when to angle, what to look for, so on and so forth. And often or not... Oh, I'm going to ram this dude. Take it. Anyway, often or not, a lot of times, you know, you see somebody angle it away, and you think you have a broadside, and you end up hitting them, and then most of your rounds bounce. So, we kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, well, you know, what is the exact perfect angle? I mean, obviously we're looking for broadsides, but if you shoot somebody 14 clicks away, they could be perfectly angled by the time the rounds get there. Cruisers, even more so. Speaking of which, if you're in a, for example, Mexico, American battleship tier 5, and you hit pretty much any cruiser, if you hit them solidly in the broadside, you will finish them. You will just straight one-shot them. And if for some reason you don't one-shot them, you're absolutely going to cripple them. They're going to be hating life. So something to think about. Now moving on, For the most part, you always want to run AP. They say, you know, when you see the DDs up close, you obviously want to run high X. Now, granted, keep in mind, this is situational, guys. This is not necessarily a hard and fast rule for everything. Battleships, you always want to run AP. Unless, of course, you see a DD and then you want to run high X. Now, the problem therein lies, you've got a 20-30 second reload. So if a DD pops out of nowhere, you're not necessarily going to have time to reload and be ready to go. So something to think about. Sometimes you end up you just have to shoot them with what you have. You know, so that's the thing. Sorry, I'm messing with the mic. I have to have it right. Moving on. So that's evidently a thing. I don't necessarily want to go into the, you know, what the cruisers need to fire, what the DDs need to fire, unless we're doing that specific type of video. But as far as the angling goes, you just really need to make sure that you are at a decent angle to oncoming fire. A decent angle is probably 25, 28, 30 degrees, somewhere around there. You get it a straight 45, and then what happens is, the shorter the angle, the steeper the angle. For example, if you're 45 degrees to an enemy ship, if he shoots the front of your ship, the armor's going to be tougher, versus if he shoots the back of your ship, it's going to be thinner, if that makes sense. So, you know, shot location also matters a great deal as well, but for the most part. We're not exactly, you know, doing a lot of the small detail things, and that's kind of what I like about World of Warships. It's kind of set on a grand scale. You know, you don't have just one gun, you have loads of guns. You know, you don't have just 5 crew members, you've got hundreds, even though that doesn't really affect in the game, but you kind of get my idea. Right here, for example, you know, we have this gentleman who's given us a good side shot. See if we can connect in there with him. It looks like a lot of it ended up hitting the rear end of the ship, but that's kind of what you have to think about. You really have to get your timing down. You have to get your situational awareness is also a big thing in a battleship, because you need to know where your possible targets are. You need to know what your gun range is, what's in range, what's here, what can you get, how you need to angle, what your potential threats are. And this kind of goes back to me saying, you know, I want to run everything. I want to know how everything works. I want to know everything's strengths, everything's weaknesses. That's going to burn. I want to know everything. And the reason being is, so, you know, let's say if I'm fighting an Amagi or what have you, then I can say, okay, well, the Amagi has X amount of reload. The gun range is normally this upgraded, you know, so, you know, I am in range or I'm out of range, what have you. Now, granted, of course, you know, if he's not shooting at you, you may be out of range, but for the most part, you know, this information is really going to help you, and it's going to stick more versus if you're just looking at it online. Wow, that's going to sting too. And guys, don't let somebody just come up here and just start teeing off on you. You know, you need to angle up, you need to do some things. You don't ever want to be broadside to a target. Also, another little thing here to think about is you don't want to put out just one fire. And the reason I say that is, as soon as you put out that one fire, you're going to be set on fire again. So, you know, for the most part, don't put out just one fire, because it's going to end bad for you. It's not going to be a good thing. Now, I need to make a little addendum here. When I started the video, I was in the Mexico. Now I'm in the New York. I've obviously went up the tree. Yeah, apparently when I loaded the clip, I was in the Mexico, and I'm watching the game, and the game was literally 2.5 minutes long. Somebody capped, or we magically won on points, or something really weird happened. And for some reason, when I chopped this clip, I did not even catch it, and I'm like, yep, there's some Mexico footage. We're gonna run with that. So yes, I am not actually in the Mexico. I'm in the New York. But either way, they're both pretty awesome. The Arkansas is actually fairly awesome too. That was in the Founders Pack. And at some point going forward, I am going to go over every single ship in the Founders Pack and kind of do a historical type situation on it. I've already done one for the Grimiashi, which is my personal favorite. The thing is Terminator on ice skates. I don't even know what that means, but moving on. Now, one of the inherent problems here of the New York is you'll see the guns are a little odd. And the reason I say that is there's always going to be like one, maybe two that you can't get on target. Because you have to pretty much turn the ship completely sideways. The best gun layout is maybe 2 on the front, 2 on the back, or 1 on the back, and they're near the fore and near the aft. What you have right now is the forward guns are what's known as super firing, and the 2 rear guns are super firing with 1 turret in the mid. Super firing is when they are stacked on top of each other and they can shoot over top of one another. They can operate fully independent, or they can track the same target, what have you. So it's not really going to, adversely affect the ship, so to speak. At any rate, moving on, the Joker there in the middle is the one that we really have to almost turn sideways to get a good connection on. Now, right here, guys, you see we've got some excellent shots at this poor Arkansas. This guy's, he's in trouble. We're angling up right now. We shouldn't take a whole lot of damage, and that's perfect, because that is exactly what we don't want to do. We've got quite a bit of damage, though, 79k. It's not going to go good, because right now you can see we're trying to bring her about. We're pushing hard on the left rudder, trying to get her angled up here so we can throw some hatred right there. And guys, when you're aiming, you want to go straight for the water line. That is the location you want to go to. The citadels, everything important is technically under the water. So that's a thing. Just, something to keep in mind. We're going to see if we can't throw some hatred at this gentleman. Get rid of him. He is the last one on the map. Looks like we've already got the secondaries going off, which that's fine. Honestly, I'll take all the help I can get. Let me mention, guys, at this time, if you guys would want to send me some footage, I will more than be happy to put it on the channel, scheduling permitting. So just something to think about. I've had Ratio. Jimmy. His name is James. Anyway, this gentleman's giving me some footage, and I would kind of like to get that going again back in like the theme of what I used to do for World of Tanks. So if you do, I have an email address below. Send it to the email address, and for God's sakes, give me a heads up, because I literally never check that email. I hope you enjoy. We'll see you guys next time.